What's up, everybody? Ghost Girl 007 here, and today's video is going to be a haunted reads. Right now we are reading I Am Haunted, Living the Life Through the Dead by Zach Bagans. He's actually a paranormal investigator. He's on the show Ghost Adventures. For some of you that may know the show, you're gonna love this book if you're new to my channel. Right now, we're on chapter 17. A savage attack in a peaceful place. The California coast has some dark secrets. Page 137. Living in Las Vegas can drain a man's soul. The transient party people, the massive temperature swings, the oppressive energy, the repeated attacks on friends in my home by dark spirits. It wears me down sometimes. 2 years ago, I realized that nothing was going well here. I felt that my environment was having an effect on me, and I knew I needed to get away. I sought a change somewhere, anywhere, a refuge from the neon lights and the what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas attitude. But I was also committed to filming Ghost Adventures, and I knew I couldn't get away to some remote mountaintop cut off from the civilized world. It had to be near reliable transportation hubs and internet connections so I could collaborate with my producers and crew on filming and editing the episodes. I didn't want to get away from my life as much as I wanted to escape my town. One day my mother mentioned Montreal, California. I had never been there, but I heard of Carmel and knew it was pretty close by. So I looked it up. I discovered that Monterey, Carmel, and Pacific Grove all lie on a tiny, unique peninsula. I think I said that right. The whole area looked like a different world, and I was immediately captivated because of the way the valley is formed and the prevailing wind blows. The temperature stays in the 60s in the summer. It looked foggy, damp, and beautiful, and reminded me of Scotland's medieval craggy cliffs. But it was right here in the US. I was sold. I'm not a spontaneous person, but something about it called me there. I booked a ticket and flew out the next day. I knew that I wasn't going to see Vegas for a while, and it felt good. I landed, booked a room in a small resort near the water, and was lost for words. This was exactly what I needed. It was quiet. It was relaxing. It was therapeutic. I could feel the knots in my soul untying themselves. But it wasn't cheap, and I racked up the hotel time. I make a good living, but I'm not what you call an impulsive spender or splurger. If I was going to stay a while, I needed to rent a house that was more economical. But like the spirits I encounter, the sticker shock of the California coast followed me. The only reasonable place I could find was a grandma cottage that had honeypots painted with bees in tulips displayed on worn-out shelves. It was rustic and old, and though it wasn't really me, it was 100 years from the beach. 100 yards from the beach, and the misty, mossy, dramatic coastline was the perfect place for a man who wants to lead the life of Dracula. The Monterey Pensacola had its hook in me, and I was enjoying it too much to leave. So I rented the cottage for a month, moved my stuff in, and tried to figure out why this place had called me there, because it did. I rarely, if ever, just pack up and leave. I plan my trips, especially when I'm going to be gone for a long time. But I also firmly believe that things happen for a reason. Forces beyond flesh and blood guide me to certain places, and something brought me here without a second thought. Something more than just my mother's suggestion. I couldn't sit around and do nothing all day, so I did some research on the area and learned about its history. I took a drive to Pacific Grove, whose Victorian homes with plaques stating the names of the families that built them in the 1800s made it seem more like Europe than America to me. It had a sense of history, of a bygone era that I haven't seen much on the West Coast. Next, I visited the Carmel Mission and met a priest named Juniper Sarah, who was an expert on the area. The Carmel Mission was so similar to the Prisma mission that we investigated in 2009 that I felt an immediate connection to it. La Prisma was such a powerful place that it became a part of me, and the Carmel Mission was damn near its twin, so I went there often to unwind and heal from all the negative energy I had accumulated. My soul felt like a wet mop, full of dirty water that needed to be wrung out. It didn't take long to hear the stories of the hauntings there. Like La Prisma, the graveyard at the Carmel Mission was equal parts Native American graves and graves of the men who had journeyed there as a Catholic missionary. The ground was saturated with the histories and energies of the multitude who had come before us, but it wasn't negative. In fact, it was the polar opposite of the gates of hell. It was more like the stairway to heaven. It was refreshing, so I went there every day until something else demanded my attention. I developed a routine in Carmel. I would wake up, get my hot tea, put my dog Gracie on her leash, walk toward the ocean. Then down here has fun facts. After I left Carmel, Father Sarah sent me an incredible video that captured an apparition on film inside the mission. I put my dog Gracie on her leash, walked towards the ocean, and let my mind go blank, and then turned toward town. There are no addresses on the houses, so it's easy to get lost. One otherwise normal day, I took a new turn for no real reason, and then another and another. I wasn't worried about being lost. In fact, I remembered thinking, wherever we end up is where we end up. Suddenly, I looked up and saw an old medieval-looking castle staring back at me. The fog hovered over its tall tower, but instead of being frightened, I felt like it was inviting me in to learn more. I didn't fight it. I walked towards the tower with no care whatsoever about whether it was private property, and Gracie and I stood at the front gate and stared. I felt like something was looking back at me. A sign said, "Tour House," so I made a note of it and decided to come back later to explore it. I learned that the poet Robertson Jeffers built the Tower House by hand in 1919 and then built the adjoining Hawk Tower between 1920 and 1924. It's an impressive structure, even more impressive when you consider that he built it by himself with only some aid from a local stonemason. Jeffers wasn't trained in construction, but he managed to build the place by himself while he was one of the leading poets of his time. That's talent. I was never one for poetry or literature or even reading books until I met Vince Hoth, a stately gentleman who served as president of the Tower House Foundation. I set up a tour of the tour house, pun intended, and when Hoth met me at the front door, he immediately started reading a poem by Jeffers called, wait for it, Ghost. As he read it, I felt an incredible sense of destiny, because in the poem, a man walking his dog outside the house encounters the spirit of Robinson Jeffers. Examining the mentor joints, that was me. Jeffers was there, and I was chilled to the bone. Even more shocking was how the poet states that 50 years would pass before this happened, and I was there on the 50th anniversary of Jeffers' death. Oh wow, that's pretty interesting. This was no coincidence. It was meant to be. These are the types of experiences that defined my life. How ghosts, spirits, demons, and supernatural powers guide me on this journey. This is why Ghost Adventures is more than just a TV show. Gracie and I at the tour house. This is Zach and his dog at the tour house. Pretty cool. Let's go to the next page. Ghost Adventures is the journey of my life, and I, as an interact with things most people cannot see, feel, or understand. The ghosts choose the location for us, not the other way around. I believe Robinson Jeffers was in touch with the spiritual plane while he was alive, and spirits guided him to build the Tower House. He was one with the stones and knew that he and his wife would remain there after their deaths, and he knew that one day he would bring me to it. We ended up filming an episode at the Tower House, which was the third location in the area that I became interested in during my several-month stay. The others were the Brookdale Lodge in Santa Cruz and the Poinsura Lighthouse in Big Sur. As you can imagine, the investigation was a powerful one for me. Robertson Jeffers' poetry integrated itself into our work and helped define us as we helped define Jeffers. It was as if he had predicted our visit, and it ended up being one of the most personal investigations ever for me. While I was using the SB7 spirit box on the very bed where Jeffers died, a voice came through and said, "Ghost," the name of the poem that had brought me there and predicted this moment. I believe that this voice belonged to Jeffers himself. and I communicated him and his wife, Una. She conducted seances in the house and tower, which was the first thing I saw through the fog that day. Gracie and I stumbled upon them. She spoke to us through the spirit box and said, "Welcome to my—" I never could make out the last word, but the other three were clear. I believe that Robertson Jeffers built this place out of rock in order to house his and his wife's spirit after death. As he wrote about in his poem, people watch ghost adventures because they want to be scared or entertained, but it has a deeper meaning, as the episode about the Tor House insulates. When you watch it, watch deeper. You'll see the passion that brought us there, and you'll understand why the ghosts guided us to them. It's not some random place we wanted to film at for 3 days before moving on to the next one. Even the most wonderful locations can turn terrifying, though it happened to me during the Monterey investigations, and I was totally unprepared for it. After we finished filming at the Tor House, we went straight to the Poinsura Lighthouse just down the coast. After the first day of filming there, we realized that the level of paranormal activity was intense, more intense than we thought it would be. To be honest, over time, the lighthouse has witnessed countless shipwrecks within just a few hundred yards, and multiple investigators have captured disembodied voices and EVPs there. It's as if the lighthouse signals spirits the same way it signaled ships on the ocean, and they flock to it. I had just come off of a positive spiritual investigation at the Tor House. I'd done a full day of interviews at the lighthouse, and I was really tired. I went back to Grandma's cottage and got ready for bed. I was downstairs getting something to eat, alone except for Gracie in the bee jar, when I heard a boom upstairs in my bedroom, followed by loud scratching noises on the floor. I ran up there and found my clothes scattered all over the place, like something you would see in a cop drama when gangsters ransacked a room looking for a safe. Something was up, something bad. I could feel it. Looking back on it, I should have left the house right then, but of course I didn't. The clothes couldn't have made the boom noise, and there were no giant raccoons in the room to make the scratching sounds. There was no way for a critter to get in or out. I was disturbed and uncomfortable, but too tired to worry about it. I've faced some pretty evil stuff, so I dismissed it, cleaned up, and laid down to sleep, but never got the chance. Lying in bed, I was startled by banging noises, followed by the feeling of hands on my shoulders. Something grabbed me and pinned me down against the headboard. It didn't move me, but held me still with enough force that I knew I wasn't going to be able to move until it wanted me to. I struggled, but it was too strong. This was no sleep paralysis. I was on my back, my eyes were open, and I was yelling. Something physically held me down for about 20 seconds, and while it did, I heard more banging noises in the room. It was one of the most disturbing feelings I've ever felt. A burst of negative energy attacked me, not with bumps or scratches, but with a transfusion of horrific violent energy. It was powerful, and to be honest, I was scared. Finally, it released me, but I was shaken so badly that I couldn't move. The room was 40 degrees colder, no extravagation. The attack was so sudden and severe that I called Billy and Aaron, screamed at them to come over, my voice and hands shaking. I should have run, but I couldn't leave the room. The spirit was still there, and it wouldn't let me go. I was hostage in the cottage. Billy and Aaron raced over and ran upstairs and felt it immediately. They knew that something was in the room, and it gave me a strange comfort to know that I wasn't the only one who could sense it. They grabbed me and took me downstairs, and the three of us and Gracie peeled rubber, leaving all the lights on behind us. I booked a room in their hotel and stayed there, refusing to spend another minute in that cottage. I knew the force that had held me down was the same dark energy that had made the loud noise and thrown my clothes everywhere. But I didn't feel like it was attached to the house. I'd been staying in this cottage for weeks and nothing had happened. So where did it come from? Did it follow me from Poinsura or the tour house? If it did, why? And what was it trying to tell me? To get out of town? Or to stop my investigations there? It was the strangest transfusion of pure hell that I have ever known, which is weird because none of those locations are known to contain dark or demonic entities. It didn't make sense then and doesn't make sense now. Despite this attack, I treasure the time I spent in California. Robertson Jeffers' spirit called me there, and I'm glad I listened, because I got the chance to tell his story and have an encounter like no other. I finally went home to Vegas and moved back into my house. My spirit refreshed and my life in a little more order than it had been. When I think about how everyone says what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, I find it ironic. For me, what happened in California stayed in California until now. And that is the end of this chapter. And until next time, everybody, keep up with the creeps, or the creepy stuff. So if you like this video, like and comment in the comment below. Turn on the notification button so that you get notified when I make a new video. Till next time, everybody. See you later.